Pitt is getting into the thick of it in the NIL race. Could this be the breakthrough year with the Alliance 412 being launched with Chris Bickell at the head of it, where Pitt can use the NIL money to really send as a recruiting prowess and use that with the ACC championship to really compete with some of the best? I'll talk about that, how important NIL is in today's modern college football game, and where Pitt could go from here. It's all coming up today on this episode of the Locked On Pitt podcast.
Are Locked On Pitt, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast, everybody. As always, thank you for making the Locked On Pitt podcast your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Folks, if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. If you are listening to this, make sure to leave a review, give feedback, do all of that great stuff. Now, folks, I wanted to talk a little bit about NIL because this is a topic I haven't really talked a lot about on this show. And it is quite honestly, a core topic when we are talking about everything from where college football is moving to recruiting, to retention. I mean, all of this stuff is coalescing in the NIL world. You have to have an NIL program nowadays in college football. If you are a Power 5 team, you probably should have one. And that's something that continuously has shown up to me. We've seen some absurd contracts from Tennessee. Nico Iamaleava has a 7-figure payout. We have seen some guys get some really good NIL deals. I mean, Kenny Pickett here at Pitt obviously had a nice payout. Didn't get exact figures on it, but you can bet it was pretty good. So Jordan Addison. And so NIL deals are more important than ever before when it comes to recruitment and when it comes to keeping your players. So the transfer portal, his movement has been motivated by NIL. It has been motivated by all this stuff. You can get money now in college football, and that changes the game, regardless of how you view it, negative or positively. The players are now making money. I think that's a good thing. I think it's a thing that's going to take some time to adjust to, and I think kind of or learn the field around it. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing, and I think it's great that these players can get paid for what they're doing, especially off their name, image, and likeness. I think it's going to open up so many different possibilities. It does make it a little bit more complicated, though, if you're a fan of the team, right? If you are a fan of the team, if you're a coach of the team, you probably are going to be racking your head a little bit because you need to have an NIL program. And so that calls boosters, that calls for everybody. NIL is the foundation of a lot of things. And in recruiting, you're now setting up NIL experts. You're setting up, agent connections. You're setting up business deals. You're setting up all of these types of connections with the larger area of which you're in. And Pittsburgh has so many lush connections. For Pitt specifically, you're going to have a lot of those. And so this is a really lush, plentiful market. And it's going to help some teams because you're going to have teams like Alabama that are going to have all this money flowing in Ohio State. But Pitt has a unique thing in the fact that they're going to have a metro area. And so having the metro area is going to open up a lot more to them as well. So you're going to be able to do citywide things, and Pitt has that advantage. Not all Power 5 teams are in a metro area. There are obviously some of them, but very few are in a city quite like Pittsburgh. There's teams like Miami that have that, teams like Minnesota that are going to be in the middle of a city. And that, Ohio State, the campus is literally in the city. It is the city, to be quite honest with you. And so you're going to have some programs that have that, but not a ton of them do. But You're also going to have programs that have all this NIL firepower. Texas A&M, Michigan, these schools that might not be in, say, a true blue city, a major city. Ann Arbor is a fine town. It's not a major city. Neither, obviously, is somewhere like Clemson, but they have tons of money, NIL money. College Station in Texas A&M, those boosters pay crazy money. And so that is something to take note of. In most schools, some schools don't have this capability. You're going to see teams in the Power Five that don't have it, but Pitt does. And this is where we get into interesting territory. Chris Bickell obviously made headlines for making that big time donation to the football program last year and being named, obviously, after the head football coach is now the Chris Bickell 97 head football coach, which is always cool there. But a guy willing to pony up the money and a guy willing to support the program. And then he comes out with an initiative, the NIL Initiative Alliance 412. And this is changing the game for Pitt. This is the thing that can get Pitt to go from just good and cursed, kind of going like this and surfing off this ACC title wave to the next level. And I think this is super important because, as they say, their initiative is to connect Pitt student athletes with and create exclusive NIL opportunities. And that is exactly what they are trying to do. And more importantly, they are trying to get things going. And this is going to be an initiative for Pitt that is one, you're going to have connections in the business world. You're going to be able to look elsewhere in the Pittsburgh metro area with Chris Bickell and a bunch of other boosters on board here. You're going to be able to link these businesses and these players together. You're going to be able to build the collective brands of players. You're going to be able to funnel money into these players' pockets. And this has really good, trickle down effects. It doesn't just have to be Jordan Addison. It doesn't just have to be Kenny Pickett. Or as this upcoming year might be, it doesn't have to just be Keaton Slovis. It can be someone else too. It can be someone like, say, a Kalijah Cansey. It can be someone like a Brandon Hill. And you have this kind of trickle down effect where you get everyone going together. You bridge a divide between the student athletes, the businesses, influencers. You get these collab opportunities. You really are able to use a lot of different initiatives to advance your things forward. And that's going to be 100% the most important thing here is that when you look at what you have to do in the modern landscape, the biggest thing is about connectivity and about building brands. And this is what players are all about. How does this building brand, how does this connection get me this money? How does this make me be able to make money more than, say, I could go to the NFL, more than I could going to this area? They're going to be a level playing ground to this to a degree. And this is going to help Pitt really take that next leap. And this is the important thing. The question is going to be how lucrative is it going to be? And this is where we get to the Loyal Sons podcast where Chris Bickell was interviewed on today. And this is really important to take a look at because he, I think, gave a lot of really good, rich information that we can take away from. And I really want to talk about this and where this could lead Pitt in the recruiting area and player retention area. But first, I want to let you know about Athletic Greens. Because, folks, if you want better gut health, more energy, an optimized immune system, and hate taking pills and vitamins, but you want something that actually tastes great, Athletic Greens has it for you. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery focused, and aging. All of these great things. Folks, it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, whether you eat whatever you want, it is helpful for you. And it only costs less than $3 to invest in your health, and it's cheaper than cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting all those different supplements for yourself. It is great to have here. Athletic Greens is a must have. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/college. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/college. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast, everybody. As we are talking through NIL here today. And I think this is one of the fun topics to talk about because it's such a brand new landscape. People are making reactionary content to it. People are throwing out all these buzzwords about it. And I think, this first part kind of covered it really well. And this is kind of my thoughts is how essential it is to the baseline of your recruiting, to the baseline of your specific brand as a team. You need strong NIL connections. And that has always been something I really believe in the modern landscape. But Chris Bickell took it to the next level. And I think this is where we get into interesting territory. This is more about, okay, Pitt has NIL deals. Cool. They're going to have better ability to connect to businesses. That in and of itself, that's a nice step forward. I like that ability. I like that they have moved forward. I like that this has been a team of guys that have come together and have tried to get that connectivity going. But that's not just it. And that's the important thing here is that Pitt is taking more than just a step of connectivity. Pitt is taking a step forward into the real world of NIL. And by the real world, I mean very specifically the very real world, because this sounds pretty crazy. And Chris Bickell essentially goes over a few things in this podcast. And you can see that there are a ton of high profile people that are interested in getting NIL deals with Pitt athletes. And I think this is the thing. So he's been working connections. He's been getting guys that are going to be willing to come in and help Pitt. And you are going to have the money, the capital. You're going to have anything you want. And here's the biggest thing. And this is the interesting thing I thought. Because Pitt, when you think of Pitt, I don't know if you think of, yes, wow, they are a big time, buzz. This is a buzzy team. This is a team that is going to just go all out and they're going to be, super wealthy and they're going to do all this stuff. That's really not what Pitt is thought of. I don't think Pitt is thought of as some rich school. They're not thought of with the same type of money as LSU, as Alabama, as Ohio State, as heck, even Penn State. I mean, we're talking about Pitt being a relatively rich school, but not a school that can compete with those athletic departments, the blue bloods, the SEC schools. Pitt's can always get outbid. But Bickell says no. And this is the most important thing. He said that there are enough high profile people, there are enough connections here, there are big things brewing here. And you have the money, the investors, and you also have the capital gain to allow Pitt to completely flip that script on its head. And he comes in and says, we are going to compete with anyone in the country like Ohio State. We're going to compete with Penn State. We're going to compete with Miami. We're going to compete with all these schools in the NIL world. And why this is important to me is that this means Pitt has a lot more buying power. And here's the thing about the NIL age. There will be some guys that are all focused on the dollar signs. That's always as it is. You want to get your bread. I get it. Go for it. But there's also going to be guys that want that bread, but are going to look a little deeper. I don't necessarily think you're going to be able to buy everyone. There are going to be those players, again, you're going to be able to buy, but everything has to line up. And by that, I mean the culture has to line up. You have to line up the fit. I mean, these kids are still living here, right? You have to line up the lifestyle. So if there is, and I think this is the most interesting angle to take for this, I think you're going to get a lot of these big-time schools, like the Blue Bloods we've talked about, that are going to throw money at these kids trying to buy them. Cool. That's okay. It's a strategy that can work on some of them. But I think there are going to be enough kids that are going to be focused on, okay, yeah, I want the money, but also I want a future in this thing. I want to play in the NFL. And Pitt, well, they have Charlie Partridge, who has produced a ton of NFL D linemen and has done all this good stuff. Well, I could go to Penn State, but maybe I like Pitt's campus a little better, and maybe I like that fit in the culture there. And I want to go play for Charlie Partridge. But Penn State's offering me a lot of money. So the natural thing is, okay, let me go to Pitt. Hey, I like your culture. I like your fit. I like what you sell me. But I got this big time NIL deal with Penn State, and I need to have some money. I love the fit, but I do need some money. This is an NIL world. It's about a worth. Football is a business now, even at this level. And now Pitt can go, okay, we can match that. We can do close to that. That's the point here. Is that I think you're going to see a lot of scenarios where these players are going to come and say, yeah, I want the money, but I'm also going to look at other things. Do I like the campus? Do I like the culture? Do I like the fit? Do I think I can grow here? That's going to be a thing. And then they're going to come to the school they like the best, and they're going to use that most lucrative NIL deal they have. And they're going to say, can you get close to that? And Pitt's going to be able to say, sure. And that, my friends, that is where we even the playing field. That is where Pitt in this Alliance 412 thing, I think is big. I think it's really important for Pitt to 100% even that field, because that has been always the question. Pitt now stepping up into the realm of the 4-star, 5-star range. They are still targeting guys like that. Pitt is trying to get those ins. You're up in that range now. And if you are Pitt and you say, how are we going to compete with the Blue Bloods? How are we going to compete with Alabama? How are we going to compete with all these guys? Maybe you won't compete with, Texas A&M and Alabama, who are just going to pay out the crazy wazoo numbers, but you feel you can come close enough? If we are talking about a player that is a 4-star, has a really lucrative deal from Texas A&M, but really likes what Pitt's selling. Okay. Really likes what Pitt is selling. What about Pitt coming in and being close to matching that? And then you get the commit. And so NIL is such a huge component of this now. Such a huge component of recruiting, and to take that next step in recruiting, that leap we have talked about. NIL is a big portion of that. Pitt now has the power to go toe-to-toe with these schools and really be able to hold on to their recruits and keep them with NIL deals. That's the important thing here. They can like what Pitt is selling, but want more money. And Ohio State's never going to be a bad place to go. Penn State's usually not going to be a bad place to go for football reasons. And so that is the important thing here, is that now Pitt has the ability to go and match. And that's the biggest thing I took away from this, is that Pitt can match monetarily, and the Alliance 412 is going to be able to use their connections, their investors, all the money they're going to use, and they're going to be able to really sponge it out and use it as buying power and have the ability to let Pat Narduzzi and his staff sell the vision and be able to sell a vision where these guys are going to buy in and they're going to say, can you match it? And now they will be able to deliver. It's another tool in the box for Pat Narduzzi. And that's going to be important. That is going to be very important. Now the question is, okay, where do you go from here? And what is going to happen with some recruits that you might be targeting right now? I'll talk about that. But first, let me let you know about BetOnline, because BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back to the Locked On Pitt podcast, everybody. As we're continuing to talk some NIL deal stuff here in the Alliance 412, if you will. And I wanted to now touch upon this. We talked about, okay, cool. We see the stuff moving up, up, and up. And Pitt now has the money to go toe-to-toe with some of these Blue Bloods, according to Chris Bickell, leader of the Alliance 412. Very important to note this, right? Very important to note this. And so when we're looking at where they go from here, Pitt now has one, the ACC championship, two coastal championships, and a bunch of NFL talent to sell them on. For quarterbacks, okay, we could say you own Kenny Pickett. Wide receivers, hey, we had the Blitnikoff winner. Defensive line, well, that's self-explanatory. Corners, look at all the guys we put in the NFL. There are a ton of things to sell now. There's a vision to sell here. Pitt as a program has a coherent vision, and they have followed through on it. And this is going to be the most important thing for Pitt, is that they are going to have to follow through on it. They are going to have to take this train all the way to the station. And so the next step in all this is combining NIL with your vision. And Pitt is in a position to do this. They are in a position to take that next leap. 2023 is going to be big for them. Now, we saw that big commitment from Jasir Whittington, and I talked about on this show how rare that was. You just don't get guys from Philadelphia. Now, he got a Michigan offer today. And I'm just going to use him as an example. Doesn't mean Jasir Whittington is going to be, a guy that is like obsessed with the money. I don't know. I don't know if he is. But let's just use him as an example. And let's just say, okay, maybe he's more of that scenario I talked about. Okay, he's more oriented towards the culture, loves the culture. He said this as much. He loves the culture, loves the fit at Pitt, loves Coach Partridge, feels like he's wanted. Okay. But Michigan comes in now and selling them on some stuff, but doesn't feel the same type of vibes with Pitt. But they say, here's this envelope, we got a 6-figure NIL deal waiting for you. Okay. And Jasir Whittington goes, okay, that's tempting. Let me go to Pitt and see what happens. And Pitt says, yeah, we'll match. And that's going to be that. And Jasir Whittington is a Pitt Panther. And this is the type of scenario I'm talking about, where you can get guys that come from tougher areas like a Philadelphia area. That's just so nationally recruited, especially at M Hopetep Charter. I mean, that is a blue blood of a program in Philadelphia that produces a ton of talent every year. And so, okay, Pitt can now match that. And now all of a sudden you can hold on to a recruit because he's going to like what you're selling enough. And more importantly, you're going to have the money to match. And this is the beauty of it all. This is why this NIL thing is so important for Pitt. This is literally a game changer for Pitt. And I mean that in the biggest way. Having NIL power in the new age of college football is just a necessity. And there are scenarios where, a Hakeem Williams this year. Like Hakeem Williams is very interested in Pitt. He's a borderline 5-star receiver, and he loves Tyquan Underwood. Now, I don't know if he's necessarily going to come to Pitt, but he's taking an official visit here. Pitt doesn't get guys like that on campus very often. And they're going to go up against some blue bloods. Alabama is in this discussion. Georgia, Texas A&M. Like Miami's in that discussion. Like we are talking about serious contenders here. We are talking about big time programs that obviously have the cheddar. Then there's Pitt. And it's like, oh. And then Hakeem Williams is going to be like, yeah, I want to commit to Pitt, but like all these other schools are offering me a ton of money. And then Pitt's going to be like, okay. Like we have money too. You got to have deep pockets nowadays. It's a business now. It's a business now. Now it's reciprocal. Before it was a business, that was just one way. Universities, whatever, they were all reaping the benefits. Now the players get to reap the benefits. And this is going to be something that you're going to look at. And Pitt's going to have this power that they have. They're going to have to use it. They're going to have to flex it because they are going to have to get to that next level. If they want to take that next level, get even more talent, get even more pedigree in terms of those stars on campus, and to commit the NIL deal, it's absolutely important because you're not going to be going up against, some of the same teams you've been going up against in recruiting anymore. You're going to be going up against SEC like powerhouses. You're going to be going up against Pac-12 schools like USC sometimes. You're going to be going up against Notre Dame. You're going to be going up against Penn State and West Virginia, that's for sure. And both of those schools have NIL deals. And so now Pitt can let their culture, their vision shine. And that's not going to be for everybody, just like it never is. Some guys will better align with Michigan. Some guys will better align with Ohio State. Some guys will better align with Penn State, West Virginia, wherever it might be. Some guys will align with that better. But now you are on an even playing field. NIL for Pitt, it's no longer a significant factor because Pitt can now talk about NIL deals with these guys and say, yeah, we have enough money. So, hey, you like us more than any other school, but you're getting like a ton of money from this school you might not like as much. Well, we can pay that. And so you get the best of both worlds. And that's the big thing because now it lets your staff shine. It lets your recruiters do the work they need to do. It lets Charlie Partridge do what he does in South Florida. It allows Archie Collins to do what he does in Michigan and Georgia. It allows Corey Sanders to go around Philadelphia and go around other areas and come up with guys. It allows all these guys. It allows Tim Salem to go to New Jersey and nab some high area guys there. It allows you, and this one's big, and especially for the Whippeal guys, like a Rodney Gallagher, you get to keep them home because the natural hometown connection is going to be so fruitful. You're going to have so many connections in this Pittsburgh area that's going to be very plentiful. And you're going to be able to sell that as like an extra crutch. You're going to be able to say, yeah, stay in Pittsburgh. You're a hometown kid. That leads to more endorsements. The money's endless here. And you get to put on the stripes for your hometown school. And you get to play at the defending ACC champions. You get to do all of that. So you just see how these pitches change when you have NIL deals. That could happen. And when you have NIL power at your program, it changes the landscape. It evens your landscape, and it lets what your program actually has for it, what it has going for it, shine through, and it levels the playing field. So this is huge for Pitt, and that's really what I wanted to highlight in today's episode of Locked On Pitt. Well, folks, as always, thanks for listening. Be back tomorrow to continue to talk a little bit about Pitt, maybe basketball, football, whatever comes on about. But we will be talking a lot about what Pitt is bringing to the table. Thanks as always for listening, folks. And as always, hail to Pitt.